Welcome to the final meeting of Curriculum and Lesson Design. If you were here with us this year or years past, this will serve as an important refresher. If you've not been with us, where have you been? As lead curriculum investigator, it's my job to listen to all ideas for their intent, merit, and effectiveness on students and educators. I take this job very seriously. In our strand, we started by discussing the components of a well-designed and well-executed lesson. As you can see, we didn't mind if it got a little messy. We followed that with a celebration of specific instructional strategies or activities we are already doing that we believe are really working. The work of this man, John Hattie, was brought in to introduce the idea of putting a numeric value to how effective instructional strategies are. With open minds and honest discussions, we attempted to understand and evaluate his research. These are our stories.
Yes, Mr. Hattie, I appreciate that your work is data-driven, and it is definitely worth exploring. However, when looking at your effect size chart, I was surprised that direct instruction is high on your list, and yet problem-based learning is very low on your list. My question to you is, how do I know who to believe when I'm getting advice from parents, admin, my APPR scores, who have very different values than you?
And the starting point for me is the observation that everybody that I talk to in this business, from teachers to parents to policymakers to academics, always tell me what the right answer is, what they do. How come we have a profession where everybody has evidence, usually their last 10 or 12 years of experience, which is very legitimate evidence? And how come, if I was doing an observation of you in the room here, I would find an incredible variation of how you teach? But you all would argue it's the right way for you and for your kids. So why is it then that every academic stands up and says you've got to do it this way? Every teacher says, watch me. It doesn't make sense. That's the problem I wanted to solve. Because here's the dilemma. If we all teach so differently, and we all get up and advocate it, then our masters and mistresses can safely ignore us and tell people to do it their way. And that's exactly what politicians do.
But I think it's also very important that the message that's going across, okay, to the student, especially, for example, at a high school setting, where the student may experience 5 or 6, 7 different teachers in a classroom, that there's some kind of commonality in terms of what the message is being sent to the student.
About 250 million students. And when you look at that 250 million students, you get a distribution like this. And you can see there that there's not much in the red zone. There's hardly anything that we do to students that harm them. Some of those effects in the red zone are perfectly sensible. The effect size of bullying, minus 0.3, perfectly sensible. And when you take those sensible negatives out, the 97 to 99% of things that we do to students enhances their learning. Hence the argument, all you need to enhance learning is a pulse.
Here are some of Hattie's 252 effects and their relative size, and you'll see the magic number of 0.4 where writing programs and cooperative learning are. Anything below that he deems as not very effective, anything above that as highly effective.
And it all comes down to putting it on this continuum. And I make no excuses for the fact that it's an achievement continuum. And with the number of kids I got music and maths, phys ed and physics. I've got 2-year-olds to 20-year-olds. I've got it from the UK, from the US, from Australia, you name it. I've got an incredible variation. And one of the things that we're obsessed about is, do those kind of factors make a difference? And in the jargon, because I'll use it a bit today, those factors, subject matter, country, age, are called moderators. And it's an empirical question. And with 1 or 2 exceptions, the answer with respect to achievement is a big, fat no. And so I'm sorry, if you're going to argue that your subject is different, your kids are different, your country is different, your curriculum is different, it's just not the case. Now, it's not saying kids aren't different. What it's saying is what affects all kids is very, very similar.
I think he makes a really interesting point in terms of how kids learn, right? Now, if you think about how your brain develops from childhood to adulthood, for whatever stage, for the most part, we know that the brain pretty much develops the same way uniformly. If you go even back to, basic psychology and Piaget, you talk about, the different stages of neurocognitive development. But they do have these individual differences that the teacher needs to recognize, needs to reach to be most effective. So it's really critical that a teacher tries to make those individual connections on a daily basis. Now, some teachers may say, well, I can't do that in a group setting. I don't have time for that. Well, nobody has time to reach 30 different kids, 30 different ways in a classroom period. But they can certainly reach one kid that day with something personal. Now, sooner or later, you've got all the kids in that classroom. And then, you're going to get the most out of each kid.
Well, I would argue the most important thing seems to be knowing your students well. From there, the individual educator is best equipped to make the decisions that will enhance learning for everybody.
This is what you think doing year 6 or year 10 English or algebra or history is. This is what I think it is. And having that debate so you're all on the same page and challenge each other about what your own expectations are. Because certainly we can show that teachers who have low expectations are amongst the most successful teachers in the world at getting kids to have low outcomes.
Well, yes, input from others is crucial, but the teacher's the expert, so teacher judgment has to be trusted.
I believe collective teacher efficacy is having all educators and administrators on board together, believing that what they do matters, that they have an impact, and that whatever they're doing can always be improved on.
Most teachers, the reason why they are teaching fundamentally is because they think that what they have to offer matters.
What are the 3 most important things you should worry about if you're the teacher? Well, I think the first one is the adage I use, know the impact. How do you know you're having an impact? And I'm going to cheat a little because I'm going to do more than 3, because even under that question there are 3 things. Having an understanding what impact means. having an understanding what the magnitude, how big the impact you want, and then having an understanding whether the equity question, whether all kids get that impact.
I don't agree with a whole lot that Hattie has to say, but I do like the first quote that you put up. Teachers should be vigilant to see what's working and what's not. They should use evidence to inform their actions and their use of every possible resource, especially peers, to move students to where they think they should be. I've used it constantly throughout my 17 years. If something's not working, I'll talk to one of my colleagues, get advice, see how I can use it directly or modify it to suit my needs.
A really, really good coach makes that person knows each player on a little bit of an individual basis, so they know which button to push to get the most out of that player within that group setting. Because at the end of the day, that student or that player must listen to that coach or listen to that teacher in a group setting and interpret it as if they're speaking to them individually. That's the magic of a great teacher.
Overall, I hope this was a safe space for all of us to come together and continue our development as we strive to improve and become a school full of great teachers. Thank you. Here with Angelo Piccirillo, science research fame. And Angelo, what is your response to Hattie's quote?
Yeah, because I like to talk about individuality and all that stuff. I can go on and on about that.
All right.